8. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dharmartha Uttama Shlokam Tantu Tanvan Pitran Yajit Rakshakama Punya Janan Ojaskamo Marut-gaṇan. Dharmartha Uttama Shlokam Tantu Tanvan Pitran Yajit Rakshakama Punya Janan Ojaskamo Marut-gaṇan. Synonyms. Dharma Artha, for spiritual advancement. Uttama Shlokam, the Supreme Lord or persons attached to the Supreme Lord. Tanū, for offspring. Tanvan, and for their protection. Pitran, the residents of Pitṛloka. Yajet, must worship. Rakshakamaha, one who desires protection. Punyajanan, pious persons. Ojaha Kamaha, one who desires strength should worship. Marut-gaṇan, the demigods. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. One should worship Lord Vishnu or his devotee for spiritual advancement in knowledge, and for protection of heredity and advancement of a dynasty, one should worship the various demigods. Purport. The path of religion entails making progress on the path of spiritual advancement, ultimately reviving the eternal relationship with Lord Vishnu in his impersonal effulgence, his localized Paramatma feature, and ultimately his personal feature by spiritual advancement in knowledge. And one who wants to establish a good dynasty and be happy in the progress of temporary bodily relations should take shelter of the Pitas and the demigods in other pious planets. Such different classes of worshippers of different demigods may ultimately reach the respective planets of those demigods within the universe. But he who reaches the spiritual planets in the Brahma Jyoti achieves the highest perfection. Om Jnana Dasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So thank you so much to everyone who's joined this morning. We are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 3, verse number 8. And we can see these verses we've been discussing two types of worship. One is when you worship demigods, and the worship of demigods give you material benefits, temporary planets, temporary results. And the other one is worship of Krishna and his pure devotees, which helps us to progress on the spiritual path and which helps us to get eternal benefit. So we can see from verses 2 to 9 until 9th verse, we'll be discussing about various demigod worship versus the worship of Krishna. And then verses 11 and 12, we'll be discussing a little bit more about pure devotional service, which is also the title of this chapter. So I wanted to today start by increasing our scope of visualization a little bit when we talk about demigods, just to give you some perspective. When we look at how this material world is managed, even on a human level, we can see it is quite astonishing. Last night, I was looking at the largest company in the world, right? The largest company is Walmart. And if we look at the employee count of that particular company, it employs at about 2.1 million people. So the employee count is 2.1 million people. And even with that massive workforce, they still go wrong a lot of times. There are still delays, there are still errors, there are shortages, mismanagement. There's a lot of problems, a lot of errors that happen. So that is human capacity. 2 million employees just to manage a few 100 million customers. It's not even in billions, a few million, 100 million customers, and still we struggle. So that is one level of scale. Now let's look at a different level of scale. This universe, Earth, alone contains, I was looking at the statistics, at about 8.1 to 8.3 billion human beings. Just human beings. I'm not counting 8.4 million species, not counting trillions of planets, not looking into these unlimited human entities in oceans, planets, forests, in different heavenly realms, not even counting them. Not looking at cosmic forces like rain, wind, fire, moonlight, sunlight, not looking at karma, not looking at all of those things, right? Now, who manages all of that? We know that it is, must understand how perfect Krishna's system is. Krishna is Ishvara Parama Krishna, the supreme controller, and he runs the entire universe with the help of his incredible network of administrators. Who are they? The demigods. So, in that way, we really admire and appreciate the demigods for taking on board the instructions of Krishna and following those instructions to the core. Right? The way Indra manages the rainfall, Vayu manages air, we know how Yamraj manages karma, justice. But Krishna empowers to each one of them by saying, Maya Dakshena Prakriti. So Maya. So my supervision. So all of these beings, Prakriti, all of these material things, the demigods, everything work under my supervision. And Krishna's management has no errors as well. The sun rises exactly on time, the moon moves according to its phases, seasons come and go. Karmic reactions are delivered right by Yamraj without a single mistake. Not a single law fails, not a single planet collides. So we can see everything works perfectly under the management of the administrators who are under the supervision of Krishna. So Krishna is managing billions upon billions of life forms through his perfectly organized, infallible administration. And when we appreciate the system, our faith increases. Yes, the demigods are real. Yes, they are very powerful and think they can give us what we want, right? Materially, they can help us because they work, their powers are in their capacity, right? If we want, um, if we want Lakshmi, we will go to goddess of Lakshmi. We don't go to some other devtas because that's their capacity. That's where they operate. That's the area they operate in, right? But if we want spiritual advancement, then one must approach Krishna and his pure devotees. That is very clear. The very first sentence of the purport says, the path of religion entails making progress on the path of spiritual advancement. So the path of religion is to make spiritual advancement. If so, it is our choice. So if you want spiritual advancement, we have to choose this path of religion, which will help us to progress towards Krishna. Religion does not mean just making, just fulfilling some rituals or or having some morality or developing some faith. It means it's what we see today in today's world is not religion. Right? A question was asked, why do we have so many religions in the world? We have about more than 10,000 religions in the world. Forget about within religions, there are so many different areas, right? But there are about 10,000 plus religions in this world. So question was asked, why do we have so many religions, right? To which the response was so that people can justify material desires in the name of religion. So that people can justify material desires in the name of religion, right? The religious organizations in the world today, they sugarcoat everything, right? It is all right to eat this animal. It is our religion. Every Christmas, it becomes a part of our religion to eat turkeys. So that is actually a way of justifying what we want to do. That is not the real truth. So we are justifying what we want to do. But real dharma, real religion means gradually uncovering our spiritual identity. That is where religion must lead us to, reconnecting us back to Krishna. Right? It helps us purifying our heart, which was all about, last chapter was all about that. Super soul, developing devotion. That is real religion. Right? This purport talks about God realization at three levels: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman is the impersonal effulgence, like the sunlight, right? Krishna's light. Paramatma is the Lord in the heart. So as we move closer to the sun, we see sun globe, that is Paramatma, his partial expansion. And then there is Bhagavan, the supreme personality of Godhead. Right? If we continue the analogy of sun, he's the sun god. And Bhagavan is the ultimate and the complete form. So that is one of the points that has been discussed in the very first sentence of the purport. And then it goes on to talk about why people worship demigods. It says over here, for protection of heredity and advancement of a dynasty, one should worship various demigods. And we have seen the system being followed in scriptures as well. Whenever kings, sages, families didn't have sons, wanted to continue with their dynasty, wanted to protect the dynasty, they used to worship suitable demigods, right? For example, Rajvasis did worship Indra for prosperity and protection of their village. King Dashrath did worship Shiva and for sons, and that's when he received Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughan. So can we do that too? Is that something that we must do it as well? So we must understand Vedic worship, demigods worship is very much a part of our Vedic culture, right? And when Krishna discouraged us to worship demigods in Bhagavad Gita, it is because Krishna is enabling us as sadhakas to rise to the highest platform of practicing undistracted devotional service. That's what he's trying to tell us to practice, because we are talking about a different yuga altogether. So we can't follow King Dashrath or Vrajvasis. Vrajvasis were anyways corrected by Krishna, or King Dashrath. We cannot follow them blindfolded, because it was a different yuga. King Dashrath was guided by his guru, right? He was a very pious soul, and he was primarily used to worship Vishnu, right? So like King Dashrath was following his guru so that everything can continue, we have to follow our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. And what did he say? For today's day and age, for today's yuga, it is chanting, sankirtan. So chant and be happy, and we must do that. Right? That is our dharma. Kamas ter rita jana prapadyante nya devata tam tam niyamam ashtaya prakritya niyata swaya. The purport, the translation is, those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender onto demigods. Those whose intelligence has been stolen, and follow the rules and regulation of worship according to their own nature. So those whose intelligence is stolen, that's when they worship demigods. It does not mean we don't respect demigods. Right? Krishna is just trying to guide us to the highest platform. Krishna says, Antavattu phalam tesham. The results are temporary when we do demigods worship. As I reflect upon my own life, I could actually find a direct connection to what we are studying at the moment. Now, since childhood, being in an Indian family, we used to worship at home many demigods, right? In our home altar, we had many demigods. And our primary demigod that we worshipped was, or is, Durga, right? Devi Durga. But since childhood, we were never asked, I was never trained in a way to ask for material things. It was never about getting good grades. It was never about getting this or that. It was always about asking for good intelligence, right? And that's what I used to ask most of the times from Durga, to give me good intelligence. So then, you just guide me on the correct path, give me good intelligence. Until a point, that's a lie, right? Until a point, I found my prayer book from grade 2. It's a handwritten prayer book. And I used to write a prayer every single day in grade 2. And it's quite funny, the kind of prayers I used to write. They used to be quite lengthy. And uh, one of them was when my sister was born. And I used to write to Durga to saying, my mom doesn't love me anymore. Please help her, understand how I'm feeling. And I used to write all those things also to Durga. Right. But other than those prayers, I remember, as far as I remember, I used to always ask for good intelligence. But then when I came to Australia at about 14, 15 years back, Krishna became the focus because we started coming to the temple. It was all about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gauranithai. It was all about Srila Prabhupada. It was all about Krishna, right? So it was all about that. And then I started feeling a bit guilty. And I used to feel, what will Durga think? That I've completely forgotten her. She has guided me all my life until now. I've completely forgotten her. And now Krishna has become my focus. So then I started praying to Durga again, but my prayers had changed. I started praying to her that this is what I'm feeling at the moment. Can you please help me, guide me in the right direction? Right? Help me, guide me in the right direction. And that's what my prayers became, right, during the initial years of ISKCON to Durga. And and then she guided me. My understanding is she guided me to this path of Krishna, because that is the role of a demigod. That is a role. That is a role. That is her blessing. So probably she didn't feel forgotten. She actually felt happy that we am progressing. I'm on this particular path. Right? So demigods become extremely happy when we take up this path as well. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, all demigod worship is ultimately maintained by Krishna. So even when we are worshipping demigods, if something comes, all our desires are fulfilled, everything is maintained by Krishna. When Prabhupada, as young Abhay, when he was around 5 years old, his father, God Mohan, would often invite many sadhus home. And some would tell Abhay, why don't you worship Kali? Why not Durga? You will get so many blessings. And little Abhay would reply, even at that age, he would say, why should I worship them when Krishna is the Supreme Lord? So this really shocked all the sadhus who used to come home. But actually, Gormon used to become really pleased with that response. So even as a child, we can see Srila Prabhupada had a very firm conviction that worship Krishna, not demigods for material desires. Right? In early days of ISKCON, one Indian man gave a devotee an amulet, a pendant, blessed by a Devi for protection. The devotee went to Srila Prabhupada and asked him, Prabhupada, should I wear it? Is it supposed to protect me? Srila Prabhupada laughed and said, what protection do you want? Krishna is protecting you. And if Krishna wants you protected, no one can harm you. And if Krishna wants you harmed, no one can protect you. And then he said the very famous line, which we have heard a lot of times. Prabhupada said, just depend on Krishna. That is enough. That is enough. Right? We can depend on demigods for small protection, but that is unnecessary, because if we are practicing devotional service, right? Another pastime is on a rooftop in Mumbai. Srila Prabhupada was speaking to some of his life members, and one of them said, "Why only Krishna? We worship so many gods: Shiva, Durga, Ganesha, Krishna also. Why only Krishna?" So Srila Prabhupada smiled and he said, if you water every branch of a tree separately, the tree will die. But if you water the root, the entire tree is nourished. So they asked, who is the root? Srila Prabhupada replied, Krishna is the root. Work at the root, Krishna consciousness, and all the demigods will be satisfied. Right? All the demigods will be satisfied. Again, the last sentence of the purport says, such different classes of worshippers of different demigods may ultimately reach the respective planets of those demigods within the universe. That's important, within this universe. But he who reaches the spiritual planets in the Brahma Jyoti achieves the highest perfection. Right? So we can see again, Bhagavad Gita has supported this statement. Those who worship demigods will take birth amongst demigods. But those who worship the ancestors go back to ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth amongst them. And those who worship with me will live with me, Krishna says. And in that particular purport, 9.25, Srila Prabhupada says, a pure devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead only achieves the planets of Vaikuntha and Pitṛloka without a doubt. Those words are very important. Without a doubt. So the decision is ours, right? Like in Bhagavad Gita, the decision was ultimately Arjuna's. When we read all these verses from Bhagavatam, the decision is ours. If we want to worship Lord Vishnu or his devotee for spiritual advancement in knowledge, or if we want to worship any demigod for some other sort of type of desires. Again, both decisions, it's not right or wrong in a materialistic sense. They're not right or wrong decisions, but it's all about priorities in our life and the ultimate goals. Where do we want to be? Where do we want to go? Right? If we are, Bhagavatashay Prabhu was discussing all about the eternal questions that we must have, right, about our life. What is my purpose of life? Where am I going? Why so many frustrations? Where am I going to ultimately reach? Right? When we have all these questions, then we'll automatically start purifying, start reviving our relationship with Krishna. Right? So a Vaishnava does not disrespect the demigod, but the other hand, Srila Prabhupada says he is not so foolish that he accepts each and every demigod as the Supreme Lord. We accept them as the administrator, not as the Supreme Lord. Right? The Supreme Lord is the master of all the demigods. And therefore, the demigods are his servants. And the Vaishnava accepts them as servants of the Supreme Lord, and he worships Krishna directly. Right? So again, highlighting the point that the decision is ours moment by moment. A young boy once asked Srila Prabhupada how he could become advanced in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada replied, it depends on your effort. If you chant sincerely, read the scriptures daily, and serve Krishna, you can progress. Nobody can do that for you. Right? Spiritual progress is not automatic. Every act of chanting, reading, serving is a choice, moment by moment. Right? We have to take responsibility of our own spiritual life. A devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, why is it so difficult to remain strict in devotional practice in this busy life today? Srila Prabhupada said, because life is full of choices. Every time you choose Krishna, you strengthen spiritual life. Every time you give time to material desire, you weaken it. Your advancement depends on your own decisions. Right? When we sometimes feel weak in our spiritual life, then we must understand it's the choices that we are making in our life. Krishna does not force and Maya does not force, but we choose whom we want to serve, Krishna or Maya. So spiritual life is entirely dependent on our own choices. As there is a famous quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, he says, I am who I am today because of the choices I made yesterday. Right? We may choose to get on an airplane to London, but once the plane takes off, we can no longer choose a different destination, but we can make choices on our plane. We can make different choices. After our arrival, we can make different choices. So this simple analogy explains so much about life. We are responsible for our own choices. And whatever reactions we are presently undergoing is due to our past choices. And the way we respond to our choices currently will be our future, will shape our future. Right? So do we want to go back to spiritual world, or do we want to be stuck in this material world? It is very important to establish our goals, our values, our priorities. Like a captain in a ship at sea, he always keeps its attention on his compass. So we also need to be very attentive. to our moral compass, especially to help us navigate through the times when we are facing a lot of difficulties in our life, right? Even small decisions, right? Like chanting one extra round, reading one extra verse, helping another devotee in services will determine our spiritual future. But it is our choice. It is our choice, the choices that we are making. So, Sakirai Prabhu always says, yesterday was Ekadashi, we must introspect. What choices are we making? What are we doing? Every decision that we are making, is that it's that helping me getting closer to Krishna? Because like Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna will never force us. But even Maya does not force us. So we cannot blame everything on Maya. Right? It is the choices that we are making. It is the free will that we have. Maya never comes and throws herself on us, and it is us who accept her in our life. Right? She is playing her role very nicely. She's a very dutiful servant of Krishna. She plays her part. But what do? We have to also play our part. We cannot blame others or circumstances around us. We cannot blame situations around us. We have to take control of our own life. Right? For that, we need guidance. We need mercy. We need mercy of our spiritual master. We need mercy of our Shiksha Gurus. If we don't have a Diksha Guru yet, then we have to take complete shelter of Shiksha Gurus. We must take complete shelter of Srila Prabhupada. Right? If we are falling down again, and every moment we are falling down again and again and again. But it's every time we fall down, it also gives us an opportunity to rise up again and again and again. So every time there's a fall down, there's an opportunity to rise. And then if we can rise higher than the fall we had, we have moved a little bit closer to Krishna. Right? So we must understand and remember all these things. And we must remind each other of these things in our different relationships that we have, whether it's friendships, whether it's between spouse, whether it's with our children. We must remind each other of these things. Right? And that's when we are making the correct choice and moving closer to Krishna. And Krishna notices each and everything. Krishna notices the desires in our heart. And if something is required, he will give us. If we need something for our spiritual progress, Krishna will give us that, whether it is, whether it's money, whether it is fame, whether it is something else. Krishna will give us that if that is required for us to progress spiritually, for us to go back to him, go back to Godhead. So with those little notes, I think I'll pause now. If you have any comments to make, any questions to ask, any corrections to make, please go ahead. Feel free to do that. Thank you so much. Anybody would like to share any of their realizations? We still have 2 minutes time from their own life where a choice has helped them to progress.
I don't know whether it's something on the sideline when you speak to people, they say, I chant Hanuman Chalisa every day. And then, we say that in Hanuman Chalisa, what does it say? Rama Dut Atulita Baladhama. So Hanuman himself, he is the Dut of Ram. He's an ambassador of Lord Ram. So if we worship Lord Ram, Hanuman will be more happy. So even the artis and prayers of the demigods, if they're genuine, authentic, it will be identifying them as servants of the Supreme Lord. So it's I thought I just a comment will make where even the demigods understand, and if the worshippers of demigod understand that they are servants of the Lord, it'll be a much better situation.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else? Okay, if not, have a wonderful, blissful day. Granthra Srīmad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.